sorry, could you speak up? We cannot hear you back here.
Sure.
Thank you.
What is the approximate cost of the transition to move to grade center?
Again, we haven't really dug in and really analyzed the scope and really everything that's involved, but our preliminary look, something appears that we can do it for under $100,000 and perhaps logically more than 50, so probably in the $60,000-$70,000 range. But again, that's all, we still need to meet the teachers, we still need to understand the options involved. That general rate.
Does that include the moving expense?
Correct.
Any construction that would have, for example, if we needed to move a board or two, or?
I think the charges really do it as economically as possible, so it does include moving of material and furniture.
Any other questions? Mr. Ramos?
We don't know yet. In the taking a shot at the structure for that, I think we need to work together with you to really understand what services you need, which ones you don't out of that. So probably can't answer that yet until we can put a time frame to it.
Is that even a ballpark?
Tough to do, but I think you're probably in the $10,000 to $20,000 range.
How many schools have you helped with the transition to go from K to grade centers?
We've done a lot of investigations. We've tested it probably in excess of 20 times.
So you've done at least 20 transitions?
We've done investigations 20 times. They
But
aren't
you've never
always
actually-
implemented.
I'm sorry?
We've done investigations 20 times. They're not always implemented.
And how
Again,
many
we
were
give them the data.
implemented?
I'd probably say 25% of that.
So 5 out of 20.
Correct.
And were those successful? Was the community behind those 5? Were they in favor? What was
You
the
need to
community-
define success, not to be difficult, but if the goal is to save money, indeed every time it saves money. If it met with universal acceptance, absolutely not.
Let me ask you some questions. In the plan that you provided, is there, I see that there's 2 meetings scheduled for the community. In your experience in those 5 that, or 20, let's just say 20 that were investigated, is 2 meetings a sufficient amount of time for the community to come forth and voice their concerns and
Perfectly reasonable question. I think that it varies tremendously. I think it's a very personal decision for every community. I think what we pose there is really just a first draft, literally. I think that feedback we get from that will help inform us as we go along. For example, if the turnout is really strong, I would recommend that we do more. And I think that depending on the time of day, it should be better for people to meet on weekends than it is after work. And you really got to have universal input. So I guess 2, I would say, would be an absolute dead minimum. I think logically we'd probably have more, but it's going to be somewhat reactionary to the input.
And what, sorry, out of the 20 that you investigated, what was the average time frame from beginning working with the school district till the actual, in those 5, is the implementation of those 5? Sorry.
From the time of study to implementation?
Yes.
It really varies tremendously. I do recommend that time to analyze it, communicate it, absorb it, and then implement it is highly valuable. In some cases, districts don't have that flexibility. Some things change and something needs to be done quickly. But I think just like even your discussion or even our understanding of the teachers and the it takes time to absorb the change. I would recommend that time is your friend here. If you have the ability to have the time, recognize there is a cost to the time. Try to take advantage of that if you can.
You know what I mean? But
Like the 5 that actually did implement it, how long was the start of theirs, do you think, till like when it actually
in most cases, again, the vast majority of the time it's studied and not implemented. But I would say that it's always at the minimum a preceding semester, and often a preceding calendar year to the implementation.
And that you have any feedback on why they were investigated and not followed through on, like what the ultimate decisions?
It's as diverse as the communities, as you can imagine. I think the exploration is dominantly based on fiscal concerns. There are some exceptions to that, but dominantly fiscal. I think that implementation is based, and sometimes the situation changes. If you pass a referendum, not you, but a hypothetical choice it makes that less of a priority. In a significant number of cases, that's what's happening.
So an if that statement is what you're telling me.
Correct.
If this does not pass, then we'll go to
That
grades.
seems to be the dominant driver.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But you're saying that if best case scenario is to give a calendar year for the creation and the transition of going from K-8 to grade centers. However, if push comes to shove and you have no choice, you can do it in a semester.
You can, yes. I mean, you can. It's just any change. It's transitioning to a new school or anything like that. Emergency situations we've seen it time and time again where a building becomes uninhabitable and you have to make the change. I mean, it's traumatic. I mean, it is a distinct change in the students, staff, and community's behavior. Change takes a while to absorb. I think that I would recommend, if possible, not necessarily a calendar year, but 2 semesters lead time. So again, the transition for that allows people to make those decisions, allows people to understand the choices that will impact for them. Yeah, it's a really challenging choice. It really is. You're essentially changing the structure of a school without changing the building. The structure is really what affects it on a daily basis.
Academic student excellence, nothing to report. Negotiations. I have a request. We need to set up a meeting for you to collective bargaining agreement with 2 board members and 2 members of the association. And I just wanted to see who is available in the next 2 weeks, in a sense, to do that. Typically, we rotated around. The only person that has not gone yet is Christian. He is busy the next couple weeks according to his schedule, and so I will open it up to the team to see who else would like to join me at this meeting. Right, it's the collective bargaining agreement once a quarter is that we get together to build rapport, trust. So I think we've all done rapport. So I'll work with you about it. And then were we able to schedule a time, talk to the association?
No, I emailed Monday. Hey, 2 dates and I think one.
We just said that.
I emailed this past Monday.
Okay. I'll include you. Great, thank you. Negotiation, or finance? Thank you. Norridge, I'm sorry. Norridge Partnership.
Okay, we met on Wednesday, January 11th, Warner and I, and we discussed, well, the purpose of our meeting was to review the lease agreement between Norridge Park District and Norridge School District 80. The lease agreement expired, and it expired in June of 2016. So after Warner and I carefully reviewing the contract, there's some language that we need some clarification on. So we're going to ask if Dr. O'Malley could run that up to our attorney. And then based off of the response we received from the attorney, then Warner and I will proceed further, and we will meet with the Park District personnel to discuss the lease agreement.
Any questions?
June of 2016.
Any other questions? Communications?
For other than, you would like to schedule something, I will coordinate with Christian with the schedule and some dates for other week.
You? The ISAB delegate?
Nothing to report on?
The ISAB was on, the report of old business. New business, we have board policy reading in October, first reading, so next month we can read it and come down with questions and look at the policy in line with the thoughts on our board comments. Public participation.
Did anybody want to participate publicly in any questions?
I do have a question.
Okay, Brandon, I'm gonna write you.
Can I? Yeah.
Yeah, just stand up. I'm sure we can hear you.
I'm sure. Normally don't have a problem with that.
Oh, I got you. I said,
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
just go ahead and speak.
My question's for the architect, about the cost. Was the cost inclusive of moving the toilets up for the 5-8 building? Moving the elementary toilets up and the water fountains up? And for the K4 building, moving the toilets that are in the junior high part down for them and the water fountains down?
Right. Again, we have not performed the study yet. I think the costs that I defined are really a dead minimum version. So really the moving that we talked about, I think some minor modifications to the classroom environment for just building on your point of adjusting marker boards, replacing marker boards to the appropriate height. Not envisioning a great deal of manipulation of plumbing at this time.
Right, but the things would need to be adjusted, and that's going to inflate this cost.
It's a choice. It's not a legal mandate. It's a choice. Again, that's what's part of the study. Is it creates
So
the
you could have
family.
a 6-foot student or a 5'10" student sitting on a toilet that's for a kindergartner?
We don't know that yet. We don't know where they'll be yet, so I don't know that answer. I think it's logical there'll be some adjustment. In this sort of scenario, typically we don't do wholesale changes on it. If the district prefers that, that certainly can be done, but recognizing plumbing is one of your more expensive trades.
Right. Approximately how much inflation could this go up to? You said under 100,000. Approximately how much higher could this be, taking into consideration some of those things?
Ultimately, it's a choice. You can spend as much money as you like. It really is just what you want to buy. The general direction has been to create a minimum scheme. So again, not things that we'd like to have, things that are nice, but really concentrate on things that you actually have to have legally and or educational. There will be a host of choices to be made. I mean, there's many choices to be made. The bathrooms are a very good example of that. So we don't know those choices because we haven't presented those options or had those discussions yet.
Okay, so there's no answer there. So we're going to sit on
I'm happy to
stall.
answer.
Yeah.
It just is.
I understand what you're
They're
saying.
choices too.
Trust
that-
me, I understand exactly. Thank you.
But just to be clear, I think the question is, are we required to retrofit our bathrooms?